Welcome to It Ain't Rocket Science. I'm Adam Balkin at Sequoia National Park in California, best known for being home to some of the world's largest trees. What you may not know, though, and we're going to follow some local teens who are learning this as well, how important this park is to much of the food you eat every day, no matter where you live in the country. More on that in a second. First, though, back on the East Coast, we catch up with students who are battling head-to-head as the first robotics competition swings into full gear, while young scientists from across the country compete in a different type of contest in Washington, D.C., where it's brains over brawn to get a shot at a $100,000 prize. In North Carolina, students are learning how they can use engineering to harness nature's power, and we'll check out one way you might be able to use math to help you make predictions for your favorite sports. Pledge to connect a young person in your life to the wonders of science, technology, engineering, and math at connectamillionminds.com/pledge. All right, now on to these sequoias here in the giant forest and what makes them the most massive trees on the entire planet. Some towering more than 275 feet in the air, these trees aren't the tallest in the world, and at more than 3,000 years old, they're not the oldest either. But the sequoias on this mountain take home top prize for being the largest living things in the world. It all starts with a tiny little seed like this.
They start out no bigger than a flake of oatmeal.
Over thousands of years, these trees have evolved a thick bark, making them very resistant to insects and forest fire. In fact, the seeds are only released from cones as a direct result of contact with wildfire. It's estimated that just 1 in a million seeds manages to germinate, and only 1 in 10,000 of those seeds grows into one of these giants. But what makes them so massive? It's all about location, location, location.
Sequoias are designed for really specific environmental conditions. So the main key where they live in the high elevations is between 5,000 and 7,000 feet. And that's very important because that's where we get the most snowpack across the Sierra Nevada. And sequoias rely on that snowpack because that's how they get the majority of the precipitation that they need to grow.
All right, now on to what makes this park so important to much of the food you eat every day. It's all about water, and it all starts here at the very top of the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's all part of a 3-day journey of discovery. Students from California's Central Valley taking part in the National Park's Sequoia for Youth program have come to learn just where the water that comes from their household faucets gets its start. They're exploring the Kauai River watershed, which receives its liquid assets from the Sequoia National Park.
Up here at the top of the watershed is where those clouds come off the Pacific and they end up hitting the mountain because our mountains are so high.
On the mountaintops, a snow reservoir collects and holds water throughout the winter, which slowly melts, allowing these giant trees to flourish. But the snow melt also feeds the creeks, streams, and rivers that flow into the valley below. But in a parched year like this, there isn't much snow. The significance isn't lost on these young explorers.
The most important part is when it rains and there's snow set in the mountains. Because without snow, we wouldn't have rivers, we wouldn't have the reserve, and the farmers wouldn't have no water.
The snow is what makes our creeks and lakes and what we need for the valley. That's how we get our water.
For many of these students, it was their first time experiencing snow. Tim and the other rangers say that witnessing this process firsthand really drives the message home.
Kind of completes the journey for them to watch the journey of this snowflake that you can see around us melting down, and as it carries itself down the river into the creeks and makes into the rivers and into our reservoirs. All right, and we'll have plenty more on Sequoia National Park coming up. First, though, we're going to shift coasts. We all just finished watching the Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. But for some children in upstate New York, they're participating in an Olympics, not of the body, but more of an Olympics for the mind. More than 300 students from Rochester area middle schools squared off at St. John Fisher College for the 2014 Regional Science Olympiad competition. The competition tested their knowledge in the fields of engineering, biology, physical science, problem solving, and more. The Olympiad was held to help determine the area's top students in the field of science.
it's taken the students 5 months of academic conditioning to prepare for the event.
Just like the sports students stay after school to practice for their sports, these students stay after school to practice for their event. And they do have a lot of fun.
This competition acts as a preliminary round for the state competition in April. Winners will eventually move on to the national competition held in Florida in May. Now moving down the coast a bit to Washington, D.C. This time, though, students from around the country are coming together to show off their science know-how.
I'm Shazia Khan in Washington, D.C. This space buzzes with promise as the next generation of science leaders share their research on everything from nanoparticles to cancer.
Epigenetic alterations are the future of cancer therapy.
40 high school seniors from across the country stepped into the spotlight as finalists of this year's Intel Science Talent Search, a program of Society for Science and the Public. But it was Eric Chen's project on new flu treatments that took home the first place prize of $100,000.
There's this urgent need for new flu medicine, and I've been really working with computers in order to speed up the introduction of that.
For these young scientists, the journey here wasn't always easy.
In the beginning I was a little frustrated, but then as I worked through it more and more, I saw possibilities and potential.
The finalists indulged curious minds with their findings at a public fair held at the National Geographic Society in Washington, D.C. Despite not coming away with the top prize, Alec Orshovsky still knows his work on enhancing corneal transplantation surgery will pay dividends.
A surgeon needs to know the precise three-dimensional structure of the piece of transplant tissue. So I developed an algorithm to automatically characterize this structure.
Science may be at the heart of this competition, but these finalists have almost rock star status as they navigate adoring fans and journalists, even handing out these baseball cards that include information about their project as well as some fun facts about themselves. Sarah Sakowitz enjoys improv.
I think it really speaks to that science isn't really a thing. It's not really, like the nerd in the closet. I think it's a perspective, and for me, it changes the way that I see everything.
And if you're hoping to become a science leader, failure may just be the key to your success.
In school, you are rewarded for always getting it right, never making a mistake. In science, you're rewarded for making the mistake and figuring out what went wrong and how to do it differently next time.
Which just could be the winning formula.
Down in Austin at the annual South by Southwest Festival, which is known for music, movies, and technology, it's not all just seeing and hearing things. There's also a fair amount that's pretty hands-on.
I'm Chris Cebulski in Austin. South by Southwest is a one-of-a-kind festival showcasing the latest high-tech gadgets, education initiatives, film premieres, as well as a music festival that features fledgling artists as well as full-blown headliners. Samsung kicked off the first day of the South by Education Conference with a competition. It's a nationwide contest called Solve for Tomorrow, where kids approach local issues through science, technology, engineering, or math.
Only one of the parts that I tested came close to the 400 ppm.
Bibi and Sophie are 8th graders from Miami, Florida, and probably know more about science than most adults.
We were testing soil to see if it was contaminated, and so we learned how to do that.
The girls investigated toxic soil at local parks. Instead of keeping their knowledge to themselves, they built a website and shared their data with the public.
Nothing was really said, so we found our answers. We put our answers to the website and really gave it to the community all in one place and made a difference.
Their research got them noticed. City and state officials met them to talk about their findings.
That shows the kids the importance of science in our civil life.
This isn't just for us, this isn't just for our school, this is for the community.
They took what they learned in the classroom and helped their community.
This is what teaching should be. I cannot teach science in a vacuum.
We're hoping that everything we're learning can not just be for our community, but maybe somewhere else in the world,
These girls are using a local stage to bring issues into the international spotlight.
We do have to stop here for a quick break. Coming up, though, we'll see more from Sequoia National Park as students continue their journey through the Kauai watershed, check in with the first robotics teams as the competition heats up, and see how some students are learning to use engineering to harness the wind's power. Find out more about Time Warner Cable's Connect a Million Minds initiative and learn about science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities in your community. Visit connectamillionminds.com during the break.